Talktainment Radio Worldwide Sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of Talktainmentradio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, the world's greatest radio, and you are in touch with the compensatory concept. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host, and this is radio the way it should be heard. In a few moments, I'm going to give you the numbers where you can call in to the show, or I can give you and will give you a Gmail address. And let me say this, that when I do give you the Gmail address and you put a question in, most likely that question won't be read today, and we'll go into the question rotation, and then as soon as it comes up, you can have your question read. So forget about calling in or writing in and thinking your question will be read on today's show, as some have. It used to be the policy, but we are so backed up with questions that is not going to happen anymore. So don't worry about that. But anyway, don't call in yet. Just hold on, and then I'll give you the numbers that you can call in. We have on the line today from Washington, D.C., as usual, our other co-host, Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. As a matter of fact, this is his show, and he is the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It's a counter-racist code guide, and by the way, Mr. Fuller, if you've noticed, will answer the questions in a codified way according to what he has written in that book. And so I'm asking that as you ask your questions, tailor your questions to how it is written or in a codified way so that you can get the answer that you seek. What has been brought out is that many of you, or some of you, have not really read the book and are trying to ask questions that you really don't know or how to put together what you're saying. And if you remember, at the beginning of the book, he just simply says, if you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. So he doesn't, and we don't want you to be confused, and that is why it is imperative that you get the book, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. As a matter of fact, the revised expanded edition, which I am reading again, is just outstanding. And I've had people call me and even write me concerning this. I can't speak enough for it. Now, he doesn't, or they don't give me any money to do this or to say this. But I'm telling you, it is one of the required readings. I feel that it is one of the required readings that you should get so that you can understand what it is and what racism is and how it works, and then ask Mr. Fuller, your questions. I would also ask that when you call in, please make your questions short so that we can get your questions on the air and so that Mr. Fuller can understand it and address your issue. Please do that. And if you write me, please do not write me a novel, because I simply can't read it anymore. I am so swamped for time. If it's too long, I will have to actually discard it. And I don't want to do that because your questions are so valuable. So don't do that. So make your call sweet. If you're going to make a comment, please don't filibuster, as somebody had said. Just make your quick comment, and then we can move on. That way we can keep the show going. Thank you again for your donations. I'm still hearing reports of monies coming in, so we want to thank you for that. Tell your friends that we are on from 9 until 11 on Wednesdays, and that is thanks to you. We've done that, and hopefully we've had our little problems worked out, so you can now call in. Well, you can now, won't be bumped off, I should say. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to present to some Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, how are you this morning?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Good. Starting off today's show, what is on your mind that you would like to pay attention to, or something that you have seen in the news, something that you want to start off with?
Well, I just want, someone sent me an email and asked me about the situation in Haiti. I don't know exactly what the situation is in Haiti, except it's got to be miserable under the system of racism, because it always has been. I've heard very few favorable things said about the location of people who are in what is called Haiti throughout its entire history. And the question that was raised was, what would I have to say about the era of Papa Doc and his son? And broadly speaking, I don't like to be specific. In particular, I don't sound like I'm criticizing any of the victims of racism, but I will say that what I have written in the code, the blanket statement that fits a whole lot of situations, not only what's going on in Haiti, but what's going on in Nigeria, what's going on in the Congo, what's going on in Ferguson, what's going on in Dallas. And it's four things that you can say in a codified manner that will always lead right to the truth, always, without fail. And it's just four things that I usually say, and I've said them here on this program, but I'll repeat them now. Number one, many people have been harmed who should not be harmed. That's number one. Number two, many people are to blame. Number three, the people who are most to blame are hiding in plain sight. Number four, the people who are most to blame are all white supremacists. Anything that happens, now that's four things, and just editorializing that, anything that happens anywhere on this planet under the system of white supremacy, the focus is the people who are most to blame. If it's happening, some harm coming to people, white or non-white, within the system of white supremacy, that shouldn't happen, that harm is directly or indirectly coming from the white supremacists. Why? Because they are in control. They are the government of the world. So anything in any area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, or war, any harm that comes to people, particularly people of color, the white supremacists are the usual suspects. You always go directly to them. Don't bother with the people in between. The white supremacists are very shrewd at putting black faces up front of what they are doing, of putting non-white people up front and making it look like they are the great engineers of all of the evil going on the planet. Not so, according to the evidence. If you dig just a little bit, you'll find that the white supremacists, based on the evidence, would have to be the usual suspects. They are the most powerful people on the planet. Those people, not all white people, but those white people who have chosen to practice racism are the smartest and most powerful people on the planet. That statement that I've just made is either true or false.
All righty. True or false? And why do you say it like that, Mr. Fuller?
I say it that way so that people can have clarity and focus when they get up in the morning, anywhere on the planet. There are things going on all around you, all the time. So you say, who are the greatest motivators of all these things that are going on? Who are the most energetic people? Who are the most innovative people? Who are the people who show the most ingenuity when it comes to getting things done and when it comes to doing things? Who are the people who have the greatest influence? If you just see a person walking down the street with a suit and tie, say, who are the people who influence that person to put on a suit and tie? And if you see planes flying through the air, you say, where did the greatest influences come from in doing all that engineering that put that plane in the air? And last but not least, if you hear guns going off, fireworks, and people falling down, all kinds of guns. Guns here, guns there. Explosives of all kinds going off somewhere. So-called landmines blowing the legs off of little children in Angola. Many years after everything is supposed to be quieted down. But people trying to farm, and instead, when they're trying to farm and trying to get some food out of the ground, I mean, with the children walking behind them, trying to gather the berries or whatever it is, potatoes or whatever it is they're trying to plant, a bomb goes off, and another person dies or get their limbs blown off. And now they can't work. They can't support themselves. They can't support the people who are dependent upon them. Who, when you look around, if you examine the bomb material and all like that, where did it come from? Who put it there? Who paid the people, sometimes black people, to come and put it there so that these things would happen for generations?
Yes.
And there's thousands of what they call landmines all over the place. And then the people who put them there or who hired other people to put them there have completely disappeared. And they're standing back watching the show thousands of miles away and say, that's my work. They're chuckling to themselves. This is the type of thing that we do, and we enjoy every minute of it.
Yes, sir. Okay. All righty. Let's do this. A caller, I'm not going to mention his last name, but by the name of Mac, wrote me a Gmail, and he just said this for Mr. Fuller. He said, my question or comment to Mr. Fuller is, has he ever done any TV talk shows? I ask that because I don't think he gets the proper respect and props that elders like John Hope Franklin, Minister Farrakhan, and Dick Gregory get. And to me, what he is saying is just as good. I've asked some African American talk show people, and they act like they've never heard of him. I do not. He's not speaking. Mr. Fuller's not seeking fame or recognition, but it seems there is a concerted effort to keep his work limited on the internet, and not to get it out to the public, because in my opinion, that is in Mac's opinion, what he's saying is even more revolutionary than what Martin Luther King was talking about. That's my opinion, but do you agree that there is a concerted effort to keep you out of the spotlight because they don't want your message catching on, Mr. Fuller?
Well, I've never been invited to be on any major television presentation. In fact, I've never been invited to appear anywhere in a major way. And that that doesn't disturb me any because I don't particularly care for that type of thing. Part of the codification philosophy is never upstage your message. Never upstage your message. Your message should always be more important than you in your presentation, because there's a scientific reason for that. People have a tendency to start saying, "I like this person," rather than I agree or disagree with what this person is saying. And so I want to keep the focus on the mathematics of solving this problem called racism. And that should be the focus, not the personalities involved. The names and pictures and dates and times, of people who have done this and done that, that should be something that should be tempered, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. The message, whatever the person was doing and whatever the person was trying to do, this should always be the focus, rather than building statues to people and taking pictures of people and having people having their pictures taken with people who are supposed to be people of note or people who are famous. And so even in museums, I think the message should be the most important thing in any museum, yes, rather than just the names and faces of people who have supposedly accomplished great things. In the science of counter-racism, the focus should always be on the science. On the science.
On the science.
Yes.
Okay.
On getting this job done. This job is in terrible shape. Trying to wrestle with this race problem, it's gone on much too long.
Yes,
much
sir.
too long.
Yes,
Never
sir.
should have been in the first place.
Yes, sir. Okay, Mac, you have your question answered and addressed. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here's one that I would like to share with you, if I can get the paper up here. And I did have it, but guess what? It's not there. Okay, let's do this. It's called Urban Flow, and it's inspired by the evolution of the hip-hop and neo-soul subculture, and it provides diversified social analysis, commentary, and intellectual satire that addresses some of the most challenging matters impacting quality of life today. And Urban Flow provides a digital environment for listeners to share ideas and opinions on current events, politics, and the millennials, arts, movements, and provides a space for the engagement of established and new artists. Hosted by Dorian Wingard, the other DL of Talk Radio. That show premieres Wednesdays exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. You are listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And you can begin to call in now by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. I'd like for you to also make sure that you get your copy of the revised and expanded edition of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. You can get that by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com, and all the information that you need on the screen will be there for you to do what you need to do. And, of course, I will have Mr. Fuller speak to that later on in the show. Got a question from the Gmail. It says, Dear Mr. Fuller, creating justice is a very daunting task. It requires a lot of work and concentration. How do you keep the energy to consistently create justice in the system of white supremacy? That comes from Renzo.
Oh, well, I just wake up every morning and I think, what is the best thing for me to be doing with the time that I have on this planet? The time that I was given on this planet is all a gift from whatever put me on the planet. It's a gift. I didn't make any effort to get here. And so when I got here, it seems like I should have some type of assignment that makes sense. And so I've looked around in the time that I have been here on the planet, and it seems like the major thing that everybody should be doing is solving problems for a very logical reason. They have problems. We could have been put here on this planet with no problems at all. Everything perfect, everything already set up in place. You don't have to make any effort to do much of anything except just enjoy what's around you. That could have been the case. Some people said that at one time that was the case until people start tinkering around and messing with stuff. And so, be that as it may, by the time I got here, I found out a whole bunch of things had been all messed up. Some things that were pluses, a few things, and a whole lot of minuses that require people to always try to straighten out things, because very few things are straightened out on their own. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be a huge number of people who have gone around and messed up a whole lot of things that shouldn't have been messed up in the first place. So I just say, well, since I'm here, I'll handle the problems that are right in front of me simply because I have to. But I found that all the problems that I am faced with in the little time I've been here on the planet have been attached to something called racism. That's the root cause of just about everything that I've ever been involved in. And when I look around, when I look at what everybody else is doing, all of their comings and goings and whatnot, it's always the result of something that is called, if it's harmful, something called racism. So I say, well, that must be the assignment that I have, and probably the assignment that most other people have, even though we spend a lot of time trying to dodge that assignment. But it resulted in me writing what I've written and doing what I'm doing now. So I find that it's very natural to do what I'm doing now, simply because it's like somebody throwing you in the water and you can't swim. And so you start just thrashing about, trying to keep above the water, trying to keep from drowning. And that's what I've been doing. Mm-hmm. So it's a natural thing with me.
Natural thing. Okay. All right. We're open up the program talking about white supremacy control. We have a call on line number one. Line number one, what is your question for Mr. Fuller, please?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. You know, I pledged to give you the show $200, but it looked like you met your goal, and you're going to start up again next year, so it might be simpler just for me to send the money next year.
Next year? That'll be fine. We are so overwhelmed by people who have contributed. It just really shocked me. Hopefully we can get all the other things that we need to get, worked out so you can call in. But did you have a question for Mr. Fuller?
Yes, Mr. Fuller. I'd like to say, please talk about the solutions and why your solutions are effective, because a lot of people think those reasons and solutions that you give in your book are oversimplified, but they're not. They really have deep, profounding effects on the individuals and the community at large. For instance, the part about stop snitching on each other. That is very profound, because during the slavery days, black people oftentimes couldn't run away because somebody would snitch on them. Okay. So, Mr. Fuller, please talk about the importance of your solutions.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Fuller?
Please talk about the importance of what now?
Your solutions.
Oh, well, I think that they should be simplified, because the white supremacists specialize in making simple things complicated. Like, but one of the main things I keep saying, and it sounds oversimplified, and even when I say it, it sounds like I'm saying something that's real simple. But also it's very effective. and that is black people should only contact each other when they have something constructive to do or say. Now, that's a very simple thing to say, almost kindergarten simple. That's like less than kindergarten. That's pre-kindergarten. But it works, and people have told me that it works. It certainly works for me. I have found out that when I used to, what you call just hang out, say, hey, call somebody up and say, hey, I'm coming over. Well, you coming over for what? I'm just coming over. I ain't doing nothing, and it don't look like you doing nothing, so I'm coming over there Saturday morning. I mean, and bring so-and-so, and bring so-and-so, and bring so-and-so. And we're just going to sit around, and we're just going to kick it. I mean, well, what do you mean by sitting around and kicking it? Well, I found from experience that a whole lot of that type of activity, when it comes to black people, maybe not other people, maybe not white people, but I tend to believe the same thing would apply to all people. When you're just sitting around, just what you call kicking it, just sitting around talking and doing nothing, laughing, I mean, trying to find something to laugh about and all like that, and spending a whole lot of time doing that, 6 and 8 people. For some reason, particularly with black males, ugly things start happening. For some strange, magical reason, if we tell the truth, ugly things start happening, and sometimes wind up with gunfire here in 2016. And someone comes along 6 hours later and say, well, how did all that happen? What happened? I mean, how did... Well, they just got together and, and they were talking, and somebody said something about somebody's mama, and this one thing called for another, and next thing you know, it's shooting all over the place, and then there's yellow tape all over the place, and then there's white men in uniforms all over the place, putting circles around bullet casings all over the street. And how did it all get started? Sitting around kicking it. That's what.
All righty. Thank you for your call. Thank you. All righty. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and you're listening to it on TalkTimeRadio.com, the radio the way it should be heard. Mr. Fuller, could you speak a little bit about your book, where we can get it, and the progress for people who are overseas who are desperately trying to obtain a copy of your book?
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com, and everything that you need to know to obtain the book should be there at that website. That's Produce Justice, because that's the ultimate goal that you're trying to reach. Well, the basic goal, that's going to lead to what I sometimes call universal man and universal woman, which is what everybody should have been in the first place. But you go to producejustice.com. Now, the overseas shipments, we're still working on that. We're still trying to figure out how to do that and make it cost-effective for everybody. It can be done now, instantly. We found some of the mechanics for doing it. It's just a matter of just actually doing it and shipping the books. But it's not cost-effective.
Yes.
Either on this end or for the people who are going to be receiving it. So we're trying to figure out all the figures and all the changes we have to go through, because a lot of parts of the world you just simply can't reach on account of the failure of infrastructure.
Yes.
In a lot of parts of the world when it comes to mailing things.
Okay.
Particularly mailing things in large numbers. And carrying the weight.
Okay, but we are addressing it. TalkTimeRadio.com. We go where you go. And you can check us out on WCRS-FM 98.3 Wednesday and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download the TalkTimeRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to have more of your calls, more of your Gmails, and more of Mr. Fuller. All that and more coming up next on TalkTimeRadio.com. To TalkTainmentRadio.com, we go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And if you'd like to get into today's show by phone, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Your question will go into the question rotation, so that probably means that it will not be read on today's show, but it will go in rotation, and at some point it will be read. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number 2, we are speaking about the subject Mr. Fuller said, which is white supremacy in control. But if you have a different question off topic, you may. Go ahead, line number 2. You are now on.
Hi, good morning. My question, Mr. Fuller, is it white racial sacrificing if non-white people kill white people?
The question is...
Could you repeat that?
Sure. Is it white racial sacrificing if non-white people kill white people?
I'm not quite understanding the question. Is white people making sacrifices or what?
White racial sacrificing? Like there were non-white people, black people who killed white police officers in these past couple of weeks. Is that examples of white racial sacrificing?
White police officers, are they being sacrificed?
Yes.
Oh, well, I usually put it this way in the code. Any white person or any person who is harmed in the system of white supremacy, who shouldn't be harmed, is harmed because of the system of white supremacy itself. The white supremacists are always to blame. Now, the white supremacists do not mind sacrificing some white people in the cause of supporting white supremacy. In other words, I mean, white people who may not believe in white supremacy. They, in order to support the system itself, the white supremacists will say, well, we know that we're in an illegitimate business. We're in a criminal enterprise, which is what the system of white supremacy is. So, in a criminal enterprise, we might have to lose a few of the members of our own mob, the members of our own criminal syndicate. And so we'll do that. We'll do the math, and if it's worth it, we'll sacrifice. We don't mind that. We'll lose a few in order to be able to conquer the many black people or keep them under control, the non-white people of the planet. So we'll sacrifice 2 or 3 million. 2 or 3 million white people who really don't particularly want to be sacrificed. But hey, this is business. We got to stay in business. So we'll do it in the form of law enforcement officers, or we'll do it in some other form. But it's good for the machine to keep running, and they don't mind that. They specialize in death. They worship death. All of their movies and whatnot that they make, it's all about death making. The people who are the greatest heroes are people who make death. People who build things, they sort of get honorable mention. But people who make death, people who kill people, are usually people who are considered to be your very best people to be remembered. And you make statues for them and fill them, the libraries up with books about how much death they can make. And that's the white supremacist philosophy. And they pass that on more than anything else that they pass on. They certainly don't pass on very much of constructive value to their victims. And they teach their victims all about death making, as long as their victims are making death among other victims. They'll finance that. They'll put all their efforts, every effort that you can make. They'll do everything they can to train a black person how to slaughter another black person. But they will get almost biting mad. I mean, teeth-gritting mad about being asked to teach a black person anything that's going to be constructive for black people. They almost look at you in amazement as if to say, why would you ask me to do something stupid like that? Help a black person do something that's going to be of constructive value? No. It's got to be something that's very destructive or something that's just absolutely silly and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'll help you do that.
All righty. Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, caller, for your call. Okay. Let's go to the phone lines again. Line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, Dr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby. I just have a quick suggestion concerning the distribution of your book. You could solve the problem as far as distributing your book by simply converting it to PDF form where people can go to your website and download it to their computer. And you don't have to worry about shipping. Now, this is not something that I'm sure your book manufacturer, whoever prints your books, is going to suggest to you, because this is basically going to take, money out of their pocket. But it'll be a lot more convenient for everyone around the world if they can just go to your website, download it to their computer, and print it out on paper if they choose to do so. That would solve your distributions problems immediately.
I will certainly look into that. And
yeah, but your book, whoever's printing your book is not going to suggest this, because this is basically taking food off their plate. But it'll be a lot more convenient if people can just download a PDF file to their computer or to their tablet and have your book immediately just by going to your website. You don't have to change the price. You can charge the same price, but your cost to distribute the book would go down significantly. It'll just be one PDF file. They'll download it to their computer, and they'll have it immediately. And that'll solve any shipping problems but for anyone around the world.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion.
And I have one quick question as well. I'm sorry. And I pose this question not only to Dr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby, but to the entire listening audience. And I ask this question as a demonstration of how important Mr. Fuller's suggestion about non-whites having a code that we all follow in unison. And here's my question. What is the one singular code that all white supremacists follow without question, whether or not they know each other, have ever met another white supremacist, or even know each other's name? This is the one singular code they all follow, which unifies them wherever they may be in the world. Whenever the subject of white supremacy is ever brought up, they all deny it and act as if the person who brought it up is out of their mind.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, you want to respond?
Oh, well, I had thought of it like that, but maybe that's exactly what they do.
Exactly. That's the one singular code they all follow. They don't have to get into a group and decide what to do. They don't have to know each other's name. But at any time the white supremacists or hear the subject of that brought up, the first thing they do, and they all do this in unison, is not give it any type of credence whatsoever.
Okay. Good comment, sir, and thank you for your suggestion, and I know Mr. Fuller will look into that PDF situation.
Thank you both, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
All righty. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. You can download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Compensatory Concept on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard. If you have a question, you can call in by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. And if you do that, take that route, of course, it won't be read today, but it will go into the question rotation. Speaking of that, I have a Gmail. Let's see. Okay, it says here, Mr. Fuller, I've read the book and listened to this show on a regular basis, but one thing I have to admit not to doing is asking questions. Now, about 2 weeks ago, I was confronted by a client who told me to kiss you-know-what and some other choice insults. Ratcheted up with it to, let's see, I'm not going to read that part. I don't need to say the rest. Anyway, once he was medicated and settled down, I applied Mr. Fuller's process of asking questions. And so I asked him, what if I or any other person he hurled those commands to actually complied with his request? He seemed dumbfounded and told me he never thought of it that way. I say all this, Mr. Fuller, in hopes that if someone else out there is confronted by such a vulgar command, that they too will ask the person, why ask me to do such a thing? Because what I've learned is that it'll force the person hurling the vulgar command to think about it and perhaps not use such term again based on what is actually implied, especially if they consider themselves to be a heterosexual man. So, Mr. Fuller, did I go about this in what you deem a correct manner?
Yes. From what you're saying, that's the procedure. That's the codified procedure. It should be a codified procedure for everything in order to get what? In order to get the most constructive results. So I've said on this program many, many times, what's the procedure for doing anything in the most efficient manner? The process, and what we're talking about is problem solving, I guess. So how do you solve problems? The process of what? Questions and answers.
Yes, sir.
So you say, you know, there are four basic questions that a person can always ask that will fit almost any occasion, and that is, what do you want me to do? That's question one. What do you want me to do? That's question number one. Question number two, why do you want me to do it? Question number three, how do you suggest that I plan to do what you want me to do? Question number four, what do you expect the constructive result to be? Now, I'm paraphrasing something put in another frame of reference.
Yes, sir.
That is in the code book, the expanded revised edition. But one form or another of those four questions can always be asked, because it always comes down to doing something. Evidently, the person was asking you to do something. But the bottom line is, after you go through the four questions of why and planning, you want to know what is going to be the constructive result. Underline the word constructive.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, before we go to the next call, in my discussions this week, a question came up on the maximum emergency compensation action. And in the last part of it, you mentioned in your book, you would have to kill yourself. You believe in the creator of the universe, and the creator of the universe indicated that thou shalt not kill. How would that, if the creator said thou shalt not kill, but in the compensation, in the compensatory counter-racist code, you say that the ultimate at the end of that is to, if you kill somebody, to also kill yourself. How does that balance itself?
Because you owe that. If you kill someone willfully, deliberately, and for whatever reason, you do it willfully and deliberately. It's not like self-defense. You know, you have thou shalt not kill even in self-defense, I guess, depends on what your religion requires you to do, which means that a whole lot of people who call themselves Christians, if they're going to go according to what some preachers have said is the religion, thou shalt not kill, that includes in self-defense. That also definitely includes in you don't put on any uniform or even march off to war. Or if you're a law enforcement officer, you don't carry anything that's going to wind up being used to kill someone.
Okay.
I mean, you got to talk yourself out of every situation. You got to be able to walk up and talk to a person who is in the act of killing people and whatnot.
Okay, but I heard you say last week that if somebody breaks into your house to do you harm, that you have the right to, as Malcolm said, send them to the cemetery.
Yes. You stop them by any means necessary. By any means necessary. Self-defense.
Okay.
Animals will do that.
Okay.
Animals will act in self-defense. That's why they're equipped with self-defense equipment. Like some of them, the saber-toothed tiger, the elephant has tusks and whatnot. I mean, this has evolved over a period of time. This is equipment. Should be used for defending yourself. There are plenty of indications in nature that indicate that you should defend yourself. I mean, against aggression.
So if defending yourself calls for you to take somebody out, kill them, you're defending yourself. Does that go against thou shalt not kill?
Sure it does. I mean, if you take that literally, I mean, but then,
I got you.
But then you have different religions who look at that different ways. And even with any religion, you will find preachers in the Christian religion who will put a footnote on that and say, except in case of.
Okay.
All right, and sometimes that except in case of is a pretty long list.
Pretty long list.
In fact, it just about cancels out the command, do not kill.
Do not kill. All righty, let's go to the phone lines. Line number, what is that? Line number 3? Okay, line number 3. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes. I would like Mr. Fuller to speak to the difference between nationality and race, because there is a difference between the two. And when speaking to white people, just like the previous caller said, when you talk to them about race, they bring up, well, I'm not white, I'm, say, part this and part that. And then the questions start.
Okay.
So could he speak more in depth to the difference between the two, nationality and race?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
There's only one nation, and that's the white nation. That's the only nation on the planet.
Yes, sir.
And that white nation are the white supremacists. Those white people who belong to the white nation are all white supremacists. And that's the only nation that you can really call a nation.
Yes, sir.
It comes down to what's the definition of a nation. I mean, one person can say that he or she is a nation if they just want to do that. Right. I mean, what's going to prevent them from doing it? I mean, you can just walk them down the street and say, hey, I'm a one-person nation.
Right.
I mean, why? Because I said so. And that's all it takes. I mean, you're qualified to do that because you just said it and declare that you are and say, and I'm going to defend my nation, which is me. And everything that I do is going to be in behalf of my nation. And you say, well, what is your nation? I just told you. My nation is me, and I'm my nation. And I belong to me, and my nation belongs to me, and I belong to my nation. End of story. So, I mean, but according to compensatory code, what I have written, and a person can agree with it or not agree with it, there are 3 categories of people on the entire planet when it comes to race. Right. And that is white, non-white, and white supremacists. But you have to be white in order to be a white supremacist. And that leaves leeway so that people don't say that all white people are white supremacists. But those who are the smartest and most powerful are white supremacists. Otherwise, we wouldn't have, logically speaking, a thing called white supremacy. So, but you don't ever call anybody that because you can't prove it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say that they are racial suspects. Now, the non-white categories cover everybody from black, whatever that means, to brown, red, beige, yellow, anybody who has been classified as non-white and or has color in his or her skin. These are the non-white people. And other people are either white people who don't practice racism and white people who do.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your call there. Mr. Fuller, in our remaining moments here in the first hour of the show, since we are now on 2 hours, and thank everybody for the donations. You mentioned earlier, and you said it repeatedly throughout this conversation, but for those who may not understand, why do you say that that some white people, rather, are not racist?
Because some white people have just been born. A white baby who doesn't know one color from another, logically speaking, I always say follow the logic, cannot practice racism because he or she is not aware of color. I mean, the evidence kind of shows that.
Okay, I get that.
Also, there are elderly white people, some of whom used to use the N-word all the time. But now that person has what some people might call Alzheimer's or something like that.
Okay.
And they might get to the place where they can't tell one color from another, just like the baby.
Okay.
Because they have reached the age of maybe 108, 109 or something, or at an earlier age. But they lost the ability to tell one color from another.
Okay, yeah, that.
Now, you can't be a white supremacist and not know your colors.
Okay.
That's impossible.
That's impossible. Okay, quickly here, Alton wanted to ask from the Gmail. He says, Mr. Fuller, do you think that black people are still considered slaves? And if so, why?
Oh, what is slavery? See, it gets to the word again. What exactly is slavery? Slavery is when you are being mistreated and you are helpless to do anything about it. In other words, you don't know what to do about being mistreated, but you don't want to be mistreated. You are, by definition, a slave. Anybody on the planet who is being mistreated right this minute, and they perceive that they are helpless to do anything about it. They don't know what to do about it. They don't know who to turn to. They don't know how to stop the mistreatment. That makes you a slave. That's all slavery is. That's all it ever was. But the white supremacist puts it in different categories so that they can control the definition. But under compensatory logic, you don't go by what they do. You go by what is logical. Logic came with the universe. So logic says slavery has to be just that. So black people who are subject to the system of white supremacy are still slaves. Why? Because the system of white supremacy is designed to mistreat people. And every person on the planet who's classified as non-white is subject to the system of white supremacy, which is being subject to a system of mistreatment. Therefore, logically speaking, each and every non-white person on the planet is directly or indirectly in some form of slavery under that system.
Okay. Well, we've come to the conclusion of the first hour. TalkTameRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Stay tuned for the second hour. We'll have more of your questions and more of your calls.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.
Okay. Excuse me there. Welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. For those who were having problems getting through, we're working on that, and I was just told by our technician, Fred, that if you refresh your, server? If you refresh your server, you're able to get it up. I'm looking at it. If you get that service message 503, just refresh your server and keep working with it, and the page will come up. We're talking with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the author of The Compensatory Concept. As a matter of fact, he has come out with a revised, expanded edition of the compensatory counter-racist code. It is outstanding. It's a revised, expanded edition, and you can get that by going to producejustice.com. Mr. Fuller, could you speak to that again, that book and any other information that you may want to have drop on the listeners?
Yes, go to producejustice.com, and you can get the updated, the revised, expanded edition of the basic textbook, workbook for victims of white supremacy. If you don't perceive yourself to be a victim of white supremacy, then the book may not be for you. It's for people who perceive themselves as being victims of and are subjects to a system of racism called white supremacy. And a lot of people say that, well, the book doesn't apply to them, so the book doesn't apply to them. It's just that simple. That's the logic. If you have a race problem, either directly or indirectly, then it might be something in the book that will help you as an individual person. Now, everything in the book is directed toward the individual person. And I'd like to say this. I want to emphasize this. As you turn the pages of the book, you might see things that you think or you perceive, logically speaking, as not applying to you as an individual. So therefore, you disregard that. If you see something, anything in that, and say, I can't use this. This doesn't apply to me. This doesn't apply to my circumstances at all. And it doesn't apply to, to anything that I know about that, that I'm in contact with. I mean, it's kind of alien to me. Then you just disregard that because it doesn't apply to you. This is a pretty big planet. So it's a lot of things that customs and whatnot that will seem kind of strange to people in some parts of the world that I'm addressing. But it might apply to some people, maybe one or two persons, and hopefully the majority of people who are classified as non-white. And that's what I'm aiming for. But I'm saying any individual who has any problem with racism, wherever he or she may be, in any area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, you might be able to find one or two things, and hopefully maybe dozens of things in this book that may be helpful in doing something that will solve your problem as an individual person. You don't have to check with anybody. I mean, and ask them, is this valid? You decide whether it's valid. You decide whether it's logical. And if it is, use it.
Okay.
If it isn't, ignore it. Pass by it. Look for something else.
Look for something else. Okay. We're speaking in the first hour, white supremacy in control. Mr. Fuller addressed that, and he That is the theme for today's show. But if you have a question that is off topic, you certainly may ask that. And we would ask that if you do, and the callers have done this today, make your questions short or your comments short so that he can answer it and more people can get on. 1-877-932-9766 is the number you can call. And you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Got a question from Mr. Winslow. He says this about open airism. It is a difficult concept for me to understand because examples of the four-wallism are so numerous. For instance, Booker T. Washington's Physical Tuskegee Institute. Are there any examples of open airism that you can think of which will help listeners understand the importance of this concept? Your prisoner of war analogy was useful in helping me to understand my status as a victim. Which code and rules observed in your military experience do white supremacists employ outside of a military setting?
Well, everything that the white supremacists do is in a military setting because they are a military organization. The system of white supremacy is an army of white people who believe in dominating and mistreating people based on color in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Dominating and mistreating people who have color in their skin. That's what they're dedicated to doing. And they do it for what reasons? Basically, in the modern days, they do it for an age-old reason: glory, fun, and material gain, because that's what they get out of it. That question may be asked: what does a white supremacist get out of practicing white supremacy? Fun, glory, and material gain. Something that everybody, for the most part, most people on the planet, like. They like to have fun. They like glory. Glory meaning people paying attention to them, people exalting them, people telling them that they are somebody, that they matter, that they are worth something. People kind of like that. So they get that out of that. Mm-hmm. And they get a lot of material gain. So that's three big items, big ticket items. That's what they get out of it. And they are a military force, meaning what? They're very militant about going about doing that. They don't mind stomping on people because, in fact, that goes with the territory.
Yes.
Harming people. On a grand scale. So that's what they do. All right. And they enjoy it.
All right. You speak of four-wallism versus open airism. Could you explain that concept to people?
Oh, well, the four-wallism is when people say, let's form organizations. And the open airism is each person, and that's what my book is directed to, the individual person being an organization and organizing around what? His or her mind organizing around a code of thought, speech, and action. Those three things: what you think, what you say, and what you do. And that formulates a code. In other words, your goal is to have a code for handling every situation that you happen to be in as an individual person. Now, the four-wall concept is, here again, you're going to solve problems just like the open air. But you're going to do it by dedicating yourself to an assembly of people. And that's the four-wall concept. I call it four walls because people usually assemble in the modern days. It used to be, in the old days, yes, before they had houses and all like that. people were just assembled in an open field or down by the riverside or something like that. But nowadays they try to point out a building that somebody's put up, and sometimes they have the building built. And they say, now, this building represents where we are going to be as an organization.
Yes, sir.
And they put that cliche term on it.
Okay.
And everybody goes in those four walls, they crowd in there, and they measure their power actually by how many people can squeeze into those four walls.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, hey, we are powerful people because when we started out, this place is pretty big, all right? And we only had 10 people. See, now we have wall-to-wall people in these four walls, and they usually regard that as a sense of power.
Yes, sir.
But really, logically speaking, if you're talking about counter-racist science, that's just a whole bunch of people in four walls.
Okay.
That's not any symbol of power at all.
So the counter-racist code of four-wallism versus open-airism is a compensatory term, made-up term. Okay, I got you.
Compensatory term.
I got you. Okay,
right.
That's for clarity. Okay, I have a question here. By the way, you can call in by calling 1-877-932-9766. Let's go here. It says, Mr. Fuller, I do my best to follow the counter-racist code of the 10 stops, being the nicest person in the room and more. Yet, people are still envious and jealous. I even bag my own groceries at the supermarket, which is their job, and these people are just as nasty and horrible as can be. On these shootings, if anyone tried to harm me unjustly, for I never try to harm anyone, inshallah, God willing, I'm protecting myself, and I don't care who you are. Well, Elijah Muhammad said, the Bible says we're deaf, dumb, blind, and even dead, spiritually dead, that is. You say we're swimming in poisonous water. Now, I care less how people act because I look at it as all business, not personal. But explain why you, Mr. Fuller, explain why so-called black people, black, white, Asian, and Latino people act so nasty after 466 years of slavery and retardation. Hopefully, your answers can help people who are struggling with these issues as well as help to resolve this problem of people activity that you call politics. I just figured that if I can try to be nice, so can he or she. But it's the same old doom and gloom from sun up to sundown, and like you say, niggerization. I don't even see how these people get hired. No customer service skills at all, and don't really want to serve you. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Well, if I understand the question, it's kind of a long question. Why do black people and non-white people in general act the way that they do?
Yes.
In a non-constructive manner.
Yes.
They act the way that they do in a non-constructive manner because all non-white people have been taught to be acting, thinking, speaking, and acting in a non-constructive manner 24/7. This is ideal for the white supremacists. So we have just been well taught. That's all. Most of us, all of us have been taught to be very destructive people. We love being destructive. We love saying things about people, gossiping about people, saying anything that's harmful. We embrace that, even when we pretend that we don't like it. We like it. We have learned to like it. We teach each other to like it. And we go around looking for reasons to do harm to each other and say things to each other that are hurtful. I mean, we look for these reasons. We think that, in the case of black males, we are taught that this is what helps make you a man, if you're ever going to be one. Go around and do something destructive, particularly if it's going to be to other black people. Just pick out black people out of the crowd, and try to figure out how to do something that makes no sense at all. And then do everything that you can to make that real. Just try everything that you can rack your brain to think of that's going to be something derogatory to say or do. So this is to be expected. We have been trained that way by the white supremacists. We have been trained that way. We weren't born that way. Just look into the eyes of a little child, a black child, a non-white child. I mean, and see. You don't see that. Mm-hmm. You see helplessness. You see, trying to look for a reason to laugh. They come here crying. We all come into the world crying. And that's a natural response because we pick it up, I guess, naturally, because we're in an evil world.
Yes.
It's been made evil by the people who occupy the positions of power. So we all come into the world crying. But at a certain point, the little baby starts looking for a reason to laugh and to trust people. They stretch out their arms just to anybody who comes along. And this is why pedophiles, take advantage of that.
Yes, sir.
And the white supremacists are the master pedophiles.
Yes, sir.
Because they have made little helpless, babbling, ignorant, stupid children out of the black people of this entire planet. And so, in answer to your question, that's why we act the way that we do. We have been carefully trained to be a very non-constructive, nasty people.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Alrighty. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here's one that I would like to share with you, and it's called What Does the Lord Say? What Does the Lord Say is a informative and entertaining talk show that addresses current, local, and world issues from a biblical perspective. Their goal is to inform, inspire, and challenge the listener to consider what does the Lord say about news and events. Now, host Twyla and Luana engage their audience as they unapologetically share their love for Christ and insight in His Word. They combine wisdom and humor to make you think, make you laugh, and make you consider. What Does the Lord Say? Broadcast on Thursdays exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. You can be heard, if you'd like, by getting in touch with the show. The number is 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. And it might not, it probably won't make it on today's show, but it will go into the question rotation. They'll give it to me, and then I'll do it. Okay, from the Gmails, we have a brother from what is so-called French Guiana. He says this, the title is Thought Murders. He says, can you address, Mr. Fuller, the comment on thought murders? He said, no one today should be surprised of this extensive violence which keeps growing minute by minute between men and women around the world, to the extent that the world is dominated by thought of the white supremacist who considers murder as a way of life. As a way of life. Mr. Fuller, can you address that?
Yes, I've addressed it before, and I said it even earlier today in this program, that under the system of white supremacy, if I get the question correct, murder is worship. Most books, the big glossy, beautiful books, beautifully bound, weighing down the shelves of many libraries, or what you call, murder mysteries. The body in the trunk, the headless corpse, murder on the 5 o'clock train, murder in the basement, murder in the attic, murder by the roadside, murder on the cruise ship, murder, 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 murder.
Murder, she wrote.
And they call them whodunits.
Yeah.
See, not only murder, but a mystery about who did the murder. Now, that sends you some messages right there about how the white supremacists operate. See, they not only believe in killing people, they believe in hiding the hand that's behind it.
Yes.
All right? And they teach people all kinds of ways. How do you murder somebody and make it look like somebody else has done it? All right? So this is what they put out there. And, I mean, it'll be a 1,000-page novel on nothing but this one killing right after another. And trying to figure out who did it. And, you know, you turn the page and you turn the page and you turn the page. And was it the butler? Or was it the maid? Or was it the caretaker? Or was it some stranger? Or was it that drifter that came through on that train yesterday? I mean, it could have been him. Track him down. Question him. Find out, I mean, whether or not he may have done it. But no, after you find out that he didn't do it, then who did it? Oh, yes, it was somebody in the family. That's who did it. That's what you find on page 870 of a 1,000-page book. And this is the kind of stuff that is drummed into people's heads. Now, why are these type of books at the top of all kinds of charts? It's because we're in a society that feeds it. That's why.
Okay. 1-877-932-9766. Again, from the Gmails. From DJ, he says, hello, Mr. Fuller. I would like to ask your opinion on POC, in particular, those classified as black and use the alcoholic beverages under the system of racism, white supremacy. Does it have any constructive use for POC in this captive state? Do you think that alcohol usage, whether sparingly or frequently, contributes to upholding racism?
Yes, well, to the extent that a white supremacist has anything to do with anything, it's always for the purpose of dominating and mistreating people of color. Doesn't make any difference what it is or how they start out. And they are very deceptive in the way that they go about doing things. And they will hold up a drink in a glass, and they'll say, now this is what you need to be in order to be a sophisticated person, an educated person, a person that people should pay attention to.
A drink.
Yes. And so they will hold up something in a glass or in a bottle and whatnot and say, now what you need is this. Come and get this. I'll sell it to you. Could you come and get it? And when you use it, you will be doing something that will make you distinctive. All right? And people, you know, that's a glory thing. And people like a little glory. Glory meaning what? Somebody paying your attention. You know, doesn't make any difference whether it's a drink in a bottle or a hairstyle or a tattoo. Something to get people to pay you some attention. So the white supremacists, they are masters at getting people to pay attention to anything that they want people to pay attention to. But also there are strings attached, and that string that is attached to them. And that string on the other end is attached to your throat, like a rope around your neck. And if you're a person of color, that's exactly what it's intended to do. So you should be suspicious of anything that the white supremacists hand you as a non-white person and say, this is good for you. You need to get this. You need to have plenty of this. And I am going to see to it that I made it available to you.
Anything.
Because you better believe if there's anything of constructive value, the white supremacists are trying to hide it from you.
All righty. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can reach the show, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Going to the Gmails, it says, hi, Mr. Fuller. I'm Tony from Houston, Texas, and I had a question for you. Do you, Mr. Fuller, believe that this white supremacy racism will ever end, and the work you are doing is helpless? Can you address that, Mr. Fuller, please? Thank you. Tony from Houston.
I absolutely do believe it'll end, because it was created. It started. And anything that people start, people can stop. Anything that people have the power, have been given the power to start, people can get the power to stop it. It's just a matter of having the will and the ability. Now, a lot of us have the will, including me. I don't have the ability yet. Why? The evidence doesn't show that I have the ability, because it's still here, the system of racism. But here's what. You keep at it. You find out what a problem is, and you keep at it. You be persistent. That word persistence is very important. You keep at it. I sometimes cite movies showing how persistence pays off. Someone once said that when you don't have any money, and you don't have any friends, and you have very little sense, the one thing that history has shown that really pays off is persistence. I'm going to say that again. If you don't have any money, you don't have any friends, you don't have any sense. In other words, you're not too good when it comes to thinking. You're a very poor thinker. But you will persist in what your goal is. You keep trying. You keep trying. You keep trying. Like that ant in the rubber tree plant. Like that ant that's stuck at the bottom of that glass. Just keep trying. Keep trying. Keep trying. Keep trying. Persistence. History has shown that most times that pays off. And so you just keep at it. And people say, oh, it seems so overwhelming. It seems so awesome. All the more reason you keep at it. The bigger the problem seems to be, the more you persist in trying to solve it. Just keep gnawing right away at it. Just keep at it. Keep at it.
Keep at it.
And that's what I'm doing with the code, because I think that that's the formula that will help address to the individual person. I think that's the formula that will lead us there faster than other formulas, or at least in complement to other formulas.
Okay. All righty. Let's see here. Where can we go here? Well, let's see. I'll tell you what, we'll do this. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on WCRS FM 98.3 Wednesdays and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to have more of your calls and, of course, more of your Gmails. All that and much, much more coming up next on TalkTainmentRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And this is radio the way it should be heard. You can call in by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Mr. Fuller is the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It's a compensatory counter-racist code, and he has the revised expanded edition for sale by going to producejustice.com. And in addition to this book, there's also a word guide. And Mr. Fuller, can you take a minute to just quickly speak on these two before we go to the phone lines?
Yes, go to producejustice.com and you will get the compensatory counter-racist code, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, revised expanded edition. Now, it doesn't necessarily replace the book that came before it, the 1984 version, but it is a revised, expanded edition of the same basic book. And it includes a lot of the material, most of the material that was in the 1984 edition of the book. But since 1984, people have raised questions and whatnot, wanted more details on certain elements of the compensatory concept, and I've tried to provide that in the revised, expanded edition of the book. Also, there's the word guide that is an addition to the basic book.
Yes.
And that's a compensatory counter-racist word guide showing you how to putting it on your mind about how to use certain words that the racists use and use them in a way that's counter-racist.
Yes.
Using the same terms. And plus, I've made up some terms that are functional, in which you can do. You can make up terms. Anybody can make up terms. I've tried to make up some terms that I thought might help, because words are nothing but tools, and I've tried to fashion some tools that will help people to think, speak, and or act in a counter fashion to counter racism and to replace it, the system of racism, with a system of justice.
Yes, right.
Justice meaning guaranteeing, and this is a made-up term, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
Okay.
You can get either one or both of these volumes by going to producejustice.com.
All righty, there you have it. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Line number, which one are we on? Line number one? Okay, line number one. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Yeah, good morning to you and Brother Fuller, brother. You got me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, brother, I just want to make a quick comment, brother. I always enjoy you all's show, but when I come to class, I like to add something to the class. In 1990, Dr. Amos Wilson said, at the very point when you reach the highest offices in this land, is going to be the very point your people are going to die by the thousands in the streets of this country. Now, how did Dr. Amos Wilson know that in 1990, that when we get black president, black attorney general, police, and black judges, that you're going to die by the thousands? How did he know that in 1990? Because Dr. Wilson knows white supremacy. And this is where my prediction comes from knowing white supremacy. They are going to exterminate us. What we are seeing now, they are creating the atmosphere and the context for our extermination to not only take place, but to be accepted in the world. After all, after we are exterminated, they are still going to have an empire to run. They are still going to be the great white father. So they're going to have all these excuses. What happened here with black people? How did you let this happen? They're going to have something to tell the world. This is why we seeing this chaos, these shootings. This is anarchy. And they are behind it. They do nothing about black people being shot down and assassinated by police on camera. Then they create these shootings of the police, and then they say, oh, look what they're doing to the police. This is all by design.
Okay.
Real quick, I'll just tell people, if you are able to get out of here, that don't mean I can get out. But I'm telling you, if you are able to get out of this cesspool, get your children out of here, your grandchildren, you had better get them out, because they are going to exterminate millions of people. And I'm just like Dr. Amos Wilson. How did he know what he know in 1990? Because he know white supremacy.
Okay.
And if I know white supremacy, I will say they are going to exterminate us.
All righty. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Mr. Fuller, could you explain? Okay. Could you explain what VGQ means and why this last comment may fit in that category?
Oh, well, he said what he said. That's what VGQ means, Victims Guaranteed Qualification. Every victim of white supremacy should be guaranteed the qualification, because you are qualified just by being a victim, to say anything about race, racism, or counter-racism that you want to say. If you consider yourself to be a victim of white supremacy, and or if you are indeed, in fact, a victim of white supremacy, you are qualified, just on that alone, to say anything that you choose to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism. And no other person should, white or non-white, no other person should say anything against what you're saying. Because, and say that you shouldn't say it. Really.
All right.
You're qualified to say that.
Okay.
Because you're a victim. You earned that by being a victim.
Okay. So my brother was a victim, and he was qualified to make his comment on that. Let's go to the phone lines. What line are we on now? Line number 3? Okay. Line number 3, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Greetings, fellas. I see you guys are doing very well with the 2-hour show now. This is excellent. I love it. First and foremost, you know what? They call that guy Extermination Guy on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
They call him the Extermination Guy. I feel his his passion, but nonetheless, you guys need to set up a YouTube account as well. I don't know if you guys have a YouTube. So when you do your show, you just send it right to the YouTube account, and boom, you have everything. Your viewers and everybody can comment and say whatever they want. Question, this is the question to Mr. Fuller. I know how he mentions like Shawshank Redemption a lot and how Andy Dufresne had to work within that system to achieve his goals. I mean, since we're all in the prison of white supremacy, will you consider refining your methods upon distributing your book, like by signing with a distributor to make it, available globally? Would you refine your methods in terms of getting with maybe a major distributor to get the book out globally? I know he mentioned he's kind of apprehensive because white supremacists own these distributing outlets, but I mean that's the question right there.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, thank you, sir. Mr. Fuller.
Yes, I'm looking for ways, to expand. Looking for ways to expand. That's why I call my second, the latest edition of the code book, the revised, expanded edition. And I'm trying to expand on people hearing what I have to say and take it for what it's worth. I'm trying to expand it all over the world so it'll be considered. I mean, that includes white people who want to look at it and see what I have to say. And then, if naturally, the white supremacists will say, oh, well, we're going to speak against what he's saying. Naturally, being white supremacists, they will. Mm-hmm. But I welcome them to do that, because what will that do? That will expand the conversation among both white and non-white people. And because my whole objective is not just to enhance an argument. We've had enough arguments.
Yes.
We need to come up with a solution to this problem, because this problem never should have existed, and we should do it in record time. So anything that will help expand that. But at the same time, I have to say this, I do want to retain control of the material from my perspective. Reason being, the white supremacists are very expert at polluting anybody's message. They know how to maneuver in such a way that they will add this and subtract this and add this and subtract this in such a way that after Neely Fuller is expired, and I will within a relatively short period of time, I'm not going to be here as long as I've already been here, most likely based on logic. And so the next thing you know, you're hearing this and you're hearing that, and you're reading this and reading that, and the message has gotten completely distorted. It's not even anywhere close. The white supremacists will know how to maneuver words around in such a way that they know how to plagiarize what is being said by little, interjecting a little bit of this and subtracting a little bit of that, and then making it all look like something that it didn't start out to be.
Yes.
And the next thing you know, it all dissipates.
Right.
Into
so basically, all you need is complete control, 100% control on your word and your witness.
That's why I came up with that phrase, stand by your work. Now, as long as everybody contributes, I'm not saying other people shouldn't say everything. Everybody should say whatever's on their mind. That's VGQ. And keep saying it. If you believe it, want to stick with it, even if it contradicts everything that Neely Fuller says, say it. Because that's your view. Stick with your view. Your view may be the thing that's going to actually solve this problem. But the white supremacists are also at work. Keep this in mind. Looking at what everybody is saying, and they will see how effective it might likely come to be. And anything that they think is effective, they are going to poison it. They are going to little by little start shifting a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and make it look like this is all a part of what Neely Fuller started out to do.
Right.
And then they'll look at something that somebody else is doing, and they will pollute and poison that. And the next thing you know, you just got the same thing you started with. Right. A whole bunch of poisonous words out here that don't mean anything because everybody's been misdirected.
All right.
I.e. the Bible. You know,
thank you.
I.e. the Bible.
Thank you for your call, caller. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay. TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, and I am the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTameItRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. You can call in at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Don't forget to pick up, or rather to order your copy of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a compensatory counter-racist code, especially the 2016 version. It is a revised, expanded edition. You need this one. You need this one. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller number, what number are we on? Number 1. Okay. You are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Mr. Fuller, I have a question. According to the code book, what should black people do about this quote-unquote Sheriff David Clark out of Milwaukee? He is a black male, quote-unquote police officer that has all the black people very upset because he's making a lot of anti-black statements. And people feel like he is a problem that needs to be dealt with. What should black people do about that according to the code book?
Listen to him and listen for the logic. Listen to anybody. That's VGQ.
Right.
You said he's a black person. And
yes,
he's making statements about what he thinks should be done, what black people should do, and what somebody should do about the race problem. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Well, he is entitled to do that. And everybody should listen to everybody who has anything to say about race, racism, or counter-racism.
VGQ.
And ask questions about what is to be done. That includes me. Neely Fuller gets in and talks about this, and the white supremacist this, and the white supremacist that. Well, be specific about your questions. After Neely Fuller or anybody else gets through talking, even if it's a white person talking about race, racism, or counter-racism, say, okay, what should be done? What should I do as an individual? Tell me in detail what I should do. And what should other people do? What should white people do? What should non-white people do about solving this problem? Starting with the day as an individual person. What can I do, sir? In the case of the sheriff that you're talking about, just listen to everything he says and don't criticize. Except you, depending on what you mean by the word criticize. But I'm saying the process of solving problems is always through the what? Questions and answers.
Questions and answers.
So after he finishes saying everything he has to say, even if he talks for 2 hours, talking about how terrible black people are acting and all like that, that's fine, because he may be telling the truth. I mean, try to find out, first of all, if he's telling the truth. That's the only criteria you go by when someone is speaking. Then you go into the question, what should be done about what you just said, and who should do it? And what should be the procedure for getting it done? What should be done? Why should it be done? What is the plan for doing it? And what is going to be the result of everybody doing what you just said?
Do you think,
Alrighty, we got to go.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that anything physical should be done to this person? Should a black person try to do something to him because they feel like he's hurting the black community?
Absolutely.
Should we be the judge, jury, and executioner here?
No,
All right, thank you for your call.
Absolutely not. I just said, VGQ. He's entitled to say anything. He's a victim. If he's black, he's a victim of racism. So he's looking at everything from his viewpoint. He's entitled to say these things. He's entitled to say these things. That's victims, VGQ. Victims Guarantee Qualification. He's qualified to say these things.
Alrighty.
No one should try to say that he shouldn't say these things.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, he's not qualified, but you can ask him questions about, okay, you say what the situation is, I guess. Maybe he made suggestions about what should be done. Well, listen to those suggestions and see if it works. If it works, do it. If it doesn't, go back to him and say, well, that didn't work, Sheriff.
Okay.
So what do I do now?
All righty. Let's go to the Gmails. Let's see. And this person asked me not to use her name, so I won't. Let's see. Why do black people focus so heavily on funerals and death? We tend to go all out to prepare for funerals, but not all out when a person is living among us. Why is that? Is the first question. And then she said, I heard Mr. Fuller mention on a previous show how non-white people focus on survival and showing off. I admit that I've been guilty of focusing on survival and not planning for the future, and also being somewhat materialistic and looking for validation from others. Can he give me some advice or tips on how to overcome this? And then I have one more question. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Stop doing anything that has show-off value. Stop trying to attract attention to yourself by showing off. Because once you get everybody's attention, what are you going to do with the attention that you got? That's a logical question. Remember, I keep saying all problems can be solved through the process of questions and answers.
Yes.
So you should ask yourself, why are you trying to get people's attention? And what are you going to do with the attention that you got once you get it? In other words, if I'm standing on a street corner and I say, hey, everybody look at my hairstyle. I want everybody, get out of their cars. Park them somewhere and come back and take a look. This is me. I just got a new hairstyle. I want everybody to see my hairstyle. All this stuff that you all are doing, you're wasting your time. Come and look at me. Come and do something constructive in your life. Do something that makes sense for once in your Negro lives. Come and look at me, Neely Fuller. I'm standing on this corner, and I just got a new hairstyle that nobody in the world has ever had. So you need to learn from this. You need to straighten out your lives by looking at me and my hairstyle. Now, so the people come, and they assemble by the thousands, and they look at me and my new hairstyle, or my new tattoo, or my new angle that I use when I sag my pants. I am getting people's attention.
Yes.
So the question now is, now that I have everybody's attention, what is supposed to be what? The constructive result.
Okay.
I should be able to answer that question. How has this contributed to making a betterment of solving their problems for the rest of their lives.
Okay. She also says, since a lot of non-white people believe in Christianity and the teachings that a Jesus figure is coming back to give us justice one day, do you think that this is why we are still being subjugated and not working to replace the system of white supremacy with justice? And also, what are your tips or suggestions do you have for how non-whites can increase patience with other non-white people?
Well, what I answer the first question first about the Jesus.
Yes.
Do I believe that Jesus may come back and solve people's problems, and that's why black people are waiting for this to happen rather than doing something to erase racism?
Okay.
Well, if that's the question, some people are. Some people have said that, well, while we're waiting on Jesus, I'm going to do a few things myself while I'm waiting. Martin Luther King was one of them. I understand, according to what I've read and heard, that during the days of Martin Luther King and other people that assisted him, a number of people said that, oh, yes, we're Christians, but we're not just waiting on Jesus to come back and straighten out everything. We are going to do a few things on our own to try to do something about this racism and do something about people being mistreated. And we are going to try to help some people who need help.
Okay.
And so they went out to do that. And they were criticized, according to things that I have read, by other people who call themselves Christians for doing so.
Okay.
But that's just the way it worked out. It comes down to a matter of choice.
Okay, then she says, what suggestions do you have for how non-whites can increase patience with other non-white people?
Increase what?
Patience.
Patience?
Yes.
Oh, by being patient.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, you definitely have to be patient with other non-white people. I mean, and by patience, you mean but you want patience with persistence.
Yeah, okay.
In other words, and how do you go about doing that? Not by denouncing what they're doing or what they're saying in opposition to what you're saying. You just simply do what? Ask questions.
All right.
Ask questions about what it is that they are doing and what it is that they think that other people should be doing.
Okay.
And let them answer. Don't help people with the answer.
All right, VGQ, TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and that's radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thank you for inviting me again.
Racial matters is why one should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.